Story number 1. Whispers in the Snow, the haunted campground of Yosemite. I still wake up in the dead of night. The memory of that fateful winter at Yosemite National Park etched into my mind like the frost patterns that once adorned my tent. My name is Ryan Matthews, and the events that unfolded during our group's winter camping trip have left an indelible mark on my soul. A constant reminder of the thin veil between the living and the restless spirits that linger in forgotten places. Yosemite, with its towering granite cliffs and serene snow-covered landscapes, had always been a place of solace for me. As an avid hiker and photographer, the park offered endless opportunities to capture nature's raw beauty, but what I experienced that winter transcended the natural wonders I had come to love, plunging me into a realm of eerie whispers and unexplained phenomena that blurred the lines between reality and the supernatural. It was early December, when the first heavy snows began to blanket the Sierra Nevada. My friends Emma, Jake, and Laura, and I decided to embark on a winter camping trip to challenge ourselves and escape the monotony of daily life. We chose a secluded campground nestled deep within the park, far from the bustling trails and tourist spots, eager to immerse ourselves in the tranquility of nature. The drive to the campground was arduous, the roads slick with ice and barely visible under the thick snowfall. As we navigated the winding mountain pass, the landscape transformed before our eyes. Lush greenery gave way to barren trees laden with snow, the air growing colder with each passing mile. By the time we arrived, dusk had settled, the sky painted in hues of pink and orange as the sun dipped below the horizon. Setting up camp was a laborious task, each of us battling the biting cold and the heavy snow to pitch our tents and gather firewood. The campground was surrounded by dense forests, the trees standing like silent sentinels guarding secrets long forgotten. As night fell, the temperature plummeted, and the world outside our tents grew silent, save for the occasional crackle of the fire and the whisper of the wind through the pines. We settled into our tents, the warmth of the sleeping bags providing a temporary respite from the harsh winter chill. Hours passed in peaceful slumber, the night holding its breath as we slept under a blanket of stars obscured by the swirling snow. But tranquility was short-lived. Around midnight, I was jolted awake by the sound of soft whispers outside my tent. At first, I dismissed it as the wind playing tricks on my mind, but the whispers grew louder, more distinct, as if someone or something was speaking directly to me. My heart pounded in my chest as I strained to listen, the words indistinguishable but filled with an undeniable sorrow. "Help us. Find peace," the whispers seemed to murmur, carried by the icy breeze that seeped through the tent walls. I glanced over at Emma, who lay beside me, her eyes wide with fear and confusion. She had been awakened by the same haunting sounds, her breath shallow and rapid. "Did you hear that?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "Yeah," I replied, my voice barely audible. It sounded like someone was crying out for help. We exchanged uneasy glances, the unspoken question hanging in the frigid air. What or who was reaching out to us in the dead of night? Unable to contain my curiosity, I unzipped my tent and stepped outside, the cold air biting at my skin as I scanned the surrounding darkness. The campground was eerily silent, the snow muffling any sounds beyond the whispering wind. The moon, partially obscured by thick clouds, cast an ethereal glow on the landscape, revealing the outlines of our friends' tents scattered around the clearing. "Guys, there's something out here," I called softly, trying to keep my voice steady. Jake and Laura emerged from their tents, their faces pale and eyes darting nervously around the snowy expanse. "We heard it too," Jake admitted, his voice shaky. It was like whispers, but no one was around. As we stood together, the temperature seemed to drop even further, a chill settling deep into our bones. Suddenly, we saw movement at the edge of the forest, a shadowy figure walking slowly along the snow-covered ground. Our breaths caught in our throats as we watched the figure approach, the steps deliberate and haunting. "Look," Laura pointed, her hand shaking. "There's someone out there." The figure drew closer, revealing the faint outline of a woman dressed in a tattered white dress, her hair flowing wildly in the cold wind. Her eyes, though hidden beneath a veil of shadow, seemed to hold an ocean of sorrow and despair. As she reached the center of the campground, she stopped and turned to face us, her presence both captivating and terrifying. "Can you help us?" she whispered, her voice a fragile echo that seemed to reverberate through the still night. Before we could respond, the figure began to fade, her form dissolving into the swirling snowflakes as if she had never been there. In her place, the air grew thick with an oppressive silence, the whispers now louder and more urgent. "Help us find peace," the voices echoed, surrounding us from every direction. Determined to uncover the truth behind the mysterious encounter, we decided to investigate the history of the campground. Over the next few days, we delved into old records and spoke with park rangers and locals who shared tales of tragic accidents and lost hikers who had vanished in the unforgiving winter months. The stories were chilling, accounts of desperate cries for help, unexplained disappearances, and sightings of ghostly apparitions wandering the snowy trails. One story, in particular, stood out. It was about a group of hikers who had set out to explore the remote areas of Yosemite during a harsh winter. Caught in a sudden blizzard, they became disoriented and lost their way, succumbing to the bitter cold. Their bodies were never found, but locals claimed that their restless spirits still roamed the snowy wilderness, forever searching for a way back home. Armed with this knowledge, we returned to the campground one final night, hoping to communicate with the spirits and offer them the closure they desperately sought. We set up a circle of candles around the clearing, the flickering flames casting long shadows that danced with the whispers of the past. Holding hands, we began to chant softly, our voices blending with the eerie sounds of the night. "Spirits of Yosemite, hear our plea. We come in peace to set you free." As we spoke, the temperature dropped once more, the air thick with the presence of the unseen. The whispers grew louder, enveloping us in a chorus of sorrow and longing. Slowly, the ghostly figure of the woman reappeared, her eyes now filled with hope and gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice now a soothing balm to our troubled minds. "You have given us peace." With those final words, her spirit began to fade, the oppressive cold lifting as warmth returned to the clearing. The whispers ceased, replaced by the gentle hush of falling snow, and the campground felt serene once more. Exhausted but fulfilled, we collapsed onto the snow, the weight of our encounter settling over us like a protective blanket. The night had been a testament to the enduring power of compassion and the thin line that separates our world from the restless spirits that linger in forgotten places. In the weeks that followed, our story spread through Yosemite, becoming a tale of hope and redemption rather than fear and despair. Visitors to the campground shared our experience, many reporting their own encounters with the whispers and ghostly apparitions, all seeking the same closure we had found. But the memory of that winter night remains with me, a haunting yet comforting reminder of the thin line between honoring the past and succumbing to fear. I often find myself gazing out at the snow-covered trails of Yosemite, the whispers of the lost echoing through my mind, a testament to the spirits that linger in forgotten places and the souls that seek to find their way home. And so, I warn others, respect the places you explore, honor the memories of those who have been lost, and understand that some encounters transcend our understanding. For in the heart of the Sierra Nevada, amidst the silent snow and lingering spirits, lies a darkness that can consume even the bravest of souls, but also a light that can guide us toward compassion and eternal peace. Story number 2. Whispers on Echo Summit, the Lost Miner's Light. I still wake up in the dead of night. The memory of that harrowing winter drive up Echo Summit Pass seared into my mind like the relentless frost that once blanketed the desolate mountain road. My name is Jack Morrison, and the events that unfolded during that fateful journey have left an indelible mark on my soul, a constant reminder of the thin veil between the living and the restless spirits that linger in forgotten places. Echo Summit Pass, nestled in the heart of the Sierra Nevada, is a treacherous stretch of road known for its unforgiving winter weather and haunting legends. The pass is steeped in history, once a bustling route for miners chasing the elusive promise of gold in the 19th century. But as the years passed and the gold veins dried up, so did the prosperity of the miners, leaving behind ghost towns and stories of those who never made it home. Among these tales, the most chilling one is about the mysterious lights that appear on the pass during the harsh winter months. Lights believed to belong to the lost miners, eternally searching for a way back. It was December 12, 2010, when my curiosity and love for the paranormal led me to embark on a solo road trip to Echo Summit Pass. As a freelance writer with a penchant for uncovering the supernatural, the legend of the lost miners' lights was too tantalizing to ignore. Armed with my camera, notebook, and a sturdy winter jacket, I set out on the long drive from Reno, Nevada, eager to capture evidence of the elusive phenomena. The drive was arduous from the start, the weather forecast predicting heavy snowfall and icy conditions. The first few hours were uneventful, the road winding through dense forests and towering pines, each mile bringing me closer to the heart of the pass. As twilight descended, the temperature plummeted, and the snowfall intensified, turning the landscape into a monochromatic sea of white. By the time I reached Echo Summit Pass, darkness had fully enveloped the mountains, the only light emanating from my headlights cutting through the thick blanket of snow. The road was barely visible, the markings obscured by the relentless fall. I parked my truck at the edge of the pass, the isolated stretch stretching out before me, flanked by sheer cliffs and snow-covered peaks that seemed to pierce the sky. I set up my campsite, the tent providing minimal shelter against the biting cold. The wind howled through the pass, a mournful cry that sent shivers down my spine. As I sat by my portable heater, sipping hot coffee and reviewing my notes, the legend of the lost miners' lights echoed in my mind. According to local lore, the lights appear as blazing torches moving slowly along the road, only to vanish when approached too closely. Some believe they are the spirits of miners who succumbed to the harsh winter, forever searching for a way home. Night deepened, and the temperature dropped further, the snowflakes dancing wildly in the frigid air. I decided to take a walk along the pass, hoping to get a better vantage point for my recordings. Bundled up against the cold, I trudged through the knee-deep snow, the only sounds being the crunch of my boots and the distant howl of the wind. As I reached a clearing with an unobstructed view of the road ahead, I set up my camera on a tripod, aiming it towards the summit where the lights were said to appear. The night was eerily quiet, the snowflakes glistening under the pale moonlight. Hours passed in peaceful solitude, the only interruption being the occasional gust of wind stirring the snow. Around 2 a.m., just as fatigue began to set in, I noticed a faint glow in the distance, a soft, flickering light moving slowly along the road. My heart raced as I adjusted my camera, focusing on the source of the illumination. The light grew brighter, its flame-like appearance reminiscent of the torches described in the legends. As it drew closer, I could make out the shape of a person holding a torch, their silhouette casting long shadows against the snow-covered road. Finally, I muttered, my voice a mixture of excitement and apprehension. I grabbed my flashlight, intending to approach the figure and get a clearer view. The light moved deliberately, each step measured and unhurried, as if navigating the treacherous terrain with purpose. As I began to walk towards the figure, the air around me grew colder, the wind picking up in intensity. My breath became visible in the frigid air, each exhale a fleeting cloud of vapor. The figure remained stationary, their eyes fixed on something beyond my sight, their presence both mesmerizing and unnerving. "Hello," I called out, my voice barely audible over the howling wind. The figure didn't respond, their gaze unwavering. I took a few more steps forward, the snow crunching beneath my boots, my flashlight illuminating their face for a split second before they vanished into thin air. The light flickered and dimmed, leaving me standing alone in the snowy darkness. Panic set in as I realized I hadn't captured any clear footage of the figure. My hands trembled as I reviewed the footage on my camera, hoping to find some evidence of what I had just witnessed. To my horror, the screen showed nothing, just the flickering light moving along the road, with no discernible figure present. Determined to get answers, I decided to stay up for the rest of the night, monitoring the pass for any further activity. Hours dragged on in tense anticipation, the oppressive cold and isolation amplifying my unease. Just as dawn began to break, painting the sky with shades of pink and orange, I heard it, the faint sound of footsteps echoing through the pass. Slow and deliberate, I grabbed my flashlight and rushed outside, the fresh snow crunching beneath my feet. The footsteps grew louder, their rhythm steady and haunting, as if someone was pacing along the road nearby. I scanned the surroundings, my heart pounding in my chest, but saw nothing beyond the snow-covered trees and distant peaks. "Who's there?" I demanded, my voice shaking with fear and adrenaline. The footsteps ceased abruptly, replaced by an eerie silence that pressed in on me from all sides. I stood there, breathless and alone, the weight of the night pressing down on me. As I turned to head back to my campsite, the snow began to fall more heavily, the flakes swirling around me in a blinding storm. In the midst of the chaos, I saw it, a flash of light moving swiftly across the road. Far too fast to be any human movement, the light seemed to dance and flicker, its unnatural movements sending chills down my spine. I raced back to my truck, the storm now in full force, visibility near zero. As I fumbled with the keys, trying to start the engine, the sound of whispers filled the air, faint and sorrowful, carried by the howling wind. "Help us! Find peace!" The voices seemed to murmur, their words lost in the tempest. Finally, the engine roared to life, and I sped away from Echo Summit Pass, the lights and whispers fading into the distance as the storm began to abate. I didn't stop until I was back in the safety of Reno, the memory of that night lingering like the persistent frost on my windshield. In the days that followed, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed me from the pass, the whispers of the lost miners echoing in my mind. I reviewed the footage from my camera again, hoping to find some proof of the supernatural encounter. But the images remained blank, no figure, no evidence, just the elusive light moving along the road. Determined to uncover the truth, I reached out to local historians and paranormal experts, delving deeper into the tragic history of Echo Summit Pass. I learned about the Donner Party, a group of pioneers who became stranded in the pass during a brutal winter, their desperate struggle for survival leading to untimely deaths and legends of restless spirits forever haunting the road. The more I learned, the more I realized that the lights were not just random phenomena, but manifestations of the lost souls seeking redemption and peace. Their eternal search for a way home had bound their spirits to the pass, their torches guiding the way in the darkness of winter. Armed with this knowledge, I decided to return to Echo Summit Pass the following winter, determined to offer the lost souls the closure they desperately sought. With a renewed sense of purpose and a heart full of compassion, I prepared for the journey, knowing that the thin line between the living and the dead awaited me on the snowy roads of Echo Summit. That night, as I stood once more at the edge of the pass, the wind whispering through the pines and the snow falling gently around me, I felt a connection to the spirits of the past. I set up my camera and tripod, the same way I had done before, and waited patiently for the lights to appear. Hours passed in serene anticipation, the silence of the night broken only by the soft whisper of the snow. Just as the first signs of dawn began to break, painting the sky with hues of pink and gold, the lights appeared once more, a procession of blazing torches moving slowly along the road, their flames flickering like eternal beacons in the darkness. This time, instead of approaching them with fear, I moved forward with respect and understanding, my heart open to their silent plea. As I drew closer, the lights began to merge, forming the shapes of the lost miners, their expressions filled with gratitude and peace. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice carrying across the snowy expanse. "I will remember your stories and help you find peace." A gentle warmth enveloped me, the oppressive cold lifting as the spirits began to fade into the light of dawn. The road was no longer haunted by restless souls, but illuminated by the memory of their enduring legacy and the compassion that had finally set them free. Driving away from Echo Summit Pass, the first rays of sunlight breaking through the horizon, I felt a profound sense of fulfillment and connection. The legends of the lost miners had been honored, their stories remembered, and their spirits finally at rest. The thin veil between the living and the dead had been bridged by empathy and understanding, transforming a place of tragedy into one of redemption and peace. But the memory of that winter night remains with me, a haunting yet comforting reminder of the thin line between honoring the past and succumbing to fear. I often find myself gazing out at the snow-covered roads of Echo Summit Pass, the whispers of the lost echoing through my mind, a testament to the spirits that linger in forgotten places and the souls that seek to find their way home. And so, I warn others, respect the places you explore, honor the memories of those who have been lost, and understand that some encounters transcend our understanding. For in the heart of the Sierra Nevada, amidst the silent snow and lingering spirits, lies a darkness that can consume even the bravest of souls, but also a light that can guide us toward compassion and eternal peace. Story number 3. Whispers in the Shadows. The haunting of Claremont Hotel. I still wake up in the dead of night, the memory of that fateful stay at the Claremont Hotel in Bishop etched into my mind like the intricate frost patterns that once adorned its grand windows. My name is Emma Caldwell, and the events that unfolded during my stay have left an indelible mark on my soul, a constant reminder of the thin veil between the ordinary and the supernatural. The Claremont Hotel stood proudly at the edge of Bishop, a relic of a bygone era with its Victorian architecture and ornate facade. Once a bustling hub for travelers seeking refuge from the harsh winters, it had now fallen into a state of elegant decay, its corridors echoing with the whispers of the past. Locals often spoke of the hotel with a mixture of reverence and fear, recounting tales of unexplained noises, ghostly apparitions, and the pervasive sense of being watched. I had always been fascinated by haunted locations, drawn to the stories that blurred the lines between reality and the supernatural. As a freelance writer, I saw the Claremont as the perfect subject for my next piece, an exploration into the heart of Bishop's most enigmatic landmark. Little did I know, my curiosity would plunge me into a nightmare I could never have imagined. It was late November when I arrived in Bishop, the town already blanketed in snow, the air crisp with the promise of winter. The Claremont Hotel welcomed me with its grand entrance, the heavy wooden doors creaking as I pushed them open. Inside, the lobby was a testament to timeless elegance, with marble floors reflecting the warm glow of crystal chandeliers and antique furnishings that whispered stories of countless guests who had passed through its doors. I checked into room 214, a spacious suite overlooking the frozen landscape beyond the large bay windows. The room was tastefully decorated, blending modern comfort with vintage charm. As I settled in, the wind outside howled, sending snowflakes swirling against the glass. I unpacked my belongings, the excitement of uncovering the hotel's secrets mingling with a subtle unease that lingered in the back of my mind. That first night was uneventful, filled with the soothing sounds of crackling firewood and the occasional gust of wind rattling the window panes. I spent hours researching the hotel's history, poring over old newspaper clippings and archived records that spoke of tragic accidents and mysterious disappearances. The deeper I delved, the more I felt a presence watching me, an invisible force that seemed to permeate every corner of the hotel. Around midnight, as the clock struck 12, the first signs of the hotel's haunting manifested. I was awakened by the sound of doors creaking open and closing on their own, the noises echoing through the silent hallways. My heart raced as I listened intently, the sounds growing more frequent and unsettling. Gathering my courage, I decided to investigate, the flashlight in my hand casting long, wavering shadows on the walls. I walked down the dimly lit corridor, the ornate wallpaper peeling slightly in places, revealing the bare plaster beneath. The air was thick with the scent of aged wood and something else, something musty and forgotten. As I approached the end of the hall, the sound of children's laughter reached my ears, a playful yet eerie melody that seemed out of place in the desolate night. "Hello!" I called out, my voice barely above a whisper. The laughter ceased abruptly, replaced by a heavy silence that pressed in on me from all sides. I turned to retrace my steps, but that's when I saw her. A ghostly figure of a woman in a flowing white gown standing at the far end of the corridor. Her presence was both captivating and terrifying, her eyes hollow and filled with sorrow as she gazed directly at me. Before I could react, she began to glide towards me, her movements graceful yet unsettling. The temperature in the corridor dropped noticeably, the chill seeping into my bones as I watched her approach. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice shaking with a mixture of fear and curiosity. She stopped inches away from me, her face obscured by a veil of mist that seemed to emanate from her very being. "Help us," she whispered, her voice a haunting echo that resonated deep within my soul. "Remember our stories." Before I could respond, the veil lifted slightly, revealing glimpses of the tragedies that had befallen the hotel. Shadows of past guests caught in moments of despair and anguish. The corridor around us seemed to dissolve into the fog of the past, the present moment blurring as I was pulled into the collective sorrow of those who had been lost. I stumbled back, the apparition fading into the ether as suddenly as she had appeared. The corridor returned to its silent state, the oppressive chill lifting as I stood there, breathless and shaken, determined to uncover the truth behind her plea. I knew I had to delve deeper into the hotel's haunted history, to give voice to the forgotten souls that lingered within its walls. Over the next few days, I dedicated myself to interviewing former employees and locals who had experienced the hotel's hauntings firsthand. Their stories were consistent: unexplained noises, ghostly sightings, and the lingering presence of those who had perished within the hotel's confines. One tale stood out in particular: the story of Margaret Whittaker, a maid who had mysteriously disappeared in the early 1900s, leaving behind only rumors of her restless spirit. As I pieced together the fragments of Margaret's story, I began to feel a connection to the woman who had haunted my night. Her sorrow mirrored my own curiosity and determination to understand the unknown. Armed with this newfound purpose, I decided to conduct a séance in room 214, hoping to communicate directly with the spirits and bring their stories to light. The night of the séance, the hotel was quiet, the only sounds the distant howl of the wind and the occasional creak of settling wood. I arranged the candles in a circle around the room, their flickering flames casting dancing shadows on the walls. With trembling hands, I began to chant the traditional invocation, my voice steady despite the fear that coursed through me. "Spirits of the Claremont, hear my plea, reveal your stories, set you free." The air in the room grew heavy, the temperature dropping as if the very essence of the past had descended upon us. The candles flickered violently, their light wavering as a presence filled the room. I felt a cold hand brush against my shoulder, and the room plunged into darkness, the candles extinguishing one by one. A ghostly figure materialized in the center of the circle: Margaret Whittaker, her form ethereal and sorrowful. Her eyes met mine, and I felt an overwhelming sense of grief and longing emanate from her. "Why do you haunt this place?" I asked, my voice barely audible. She reached out, her fingers passing through me like mist. "We are trapped by our stories, our sorrows. Remember us. Share our pain." The room seemed to spin, the weight of her words pressing down on me. I understood then that the spirits of the Claremont Hotel were bound to their unresolved tragedies, unable to move on until their stories were told and remembered. "How can I help you find peace?" I implored, tears welling in my eyes. Margaret's form began to fade, her presence diminishing as the first light of dawn crept into the room. "Remember us? Share our stories." With those final words, she vanished, leaving me alone in the silent room. The candles now relit, their light steady and warm. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, replaced by a sense of calm and purpose. I knew then that my role was not just to document the hauntings, but to honor the memories of those who had been lost within the Claremont's walls. In the weeks that followed, I published my findings, the stories of Margaret and the other restless spirits resonating with readers who were captivated by the haunting beauty of the Claremont Hotel. The response was overwhelming, with many expressing a renewed sense of respect and empathy for the souls that had been forgotten. But the memory of that night remains with me, a haunting reminder of the thin line between honoring the past and succumbing to fear. I often find myself gazing out at the snow-covered grounds of the Claremont, the whispers of the past echoing through my mind, a testament to the enduring bonds between the living and the dead. And so, I warn others, respect the places you visit, honor the memories of those who have been lost, and understand that some encounters transcend our understanding. For in the heart of Bishop, amidst the silent snow and lingering spirits, lies a darkness that can consume even the bravest of souls, but also a light that can guide us toward compassion and eternal peace. Story number 4. Whispers on the Rails, the haunting of Truckee Station. I still wake up in the dead of night, the memory of that frigid December evening in Truckee etched into my mind like the relentless snowfall that once blanketed the old train station. My name is Mark Donovan, and the events that unfolded during my final days as a night shift employee at Truckee Station have left an indelible mark on my soul, a constant reminder of the thin veil between the living and the restless spirits that haunt forgotten places. Truckee, nestled in the rugged embrace of the Sierra Nevada, was once a bustling hub for miners and settlers chasing the elusive promise of gold. The town thrived on the railroad that connected it to the rest of the country, each train carrying dreams and livelihoods along the iron tracks. But as the gold rush faded, so did the prosperity of Truckee, leaving behind a relic of its former glory, the old train station. The station itself was a grand structure, its Victorian architecture standing proudly against the backdrop of towering pine trees and snow-covered hills. Over the years, it had fallen into disrepair, the once vibrant paint peeling away and the windows dusty and grimy. Despite its abandonment, the station remained a point of interest for history enthusiasts and thrill-seekers drawn to its haunted reputation. I had always been fascinated by the stories surrounding Truckee Station, the tragic train accidents, the unexplained noises, and the sightings of a woman in white gliding along the tracks. As a journalist with a penchant for the paranormal, I saw an opportunity to uncover the truth behind the legends that had become synonymous with Truckee. My assignment was simple: spend a week documenting the eerie happenings at the station, interviewing former employees and locals who had experienced the supernatural firsthand. I arrived in Truckee on a crisp November morning, the town's quiet charm belying the dark tales whispered among its residents. The first few days were uneventful, filled with interviews and exploration of the station's decaying interior. The former waiting room, once bustling with passengers, was now a cavernous space filled with cobwebs and the scent of damp wood. I spent hours poring over old records and photographs, piecing together the history of the station and the series of unfortunate events that had plagued it. It was on my 4th night that the true horror began. I had taken up residence in a small cabin near the station, the perfect vantage point for my nightly investigations. The wind howled through the pines, and the snow fell in heavy, silent sheets, muting the world outside. As I sat in my makeshift office, reviewing notes and preparing for another interview, a chill crept over me, a sensation that was both physical and deeply unsettling. "Mark," a voice called softly, breaking the silence. I turned to see Jenny, the station's former night manager, standing at the doorway. Her presence was unexpected, given that the station had been closed for years. Jenny? How are you here? The station's been shut down since. Before I could finish, her form flickered like a faulty light bulb, and she vanished, leaving me staring into the empty room. My heart pounded in my chest as I questioned my sanity. The hours of solitude were catching up with me, or perhaps the legends were more than mere stories. Determined to prove myself wrong, I decided to stay late at the station, seeking answers in the dead of night. Armed with my camera, notebook, and a flashlight, I ventured into the heart of Truckee Station just as midnight approached. The air was thick with anticipation, the silence punctuated only by the distant howl of a lone wolf. As I wandered through the deserted platforms, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The tracks stretched out before me, their metal gleaming under the pale moonlight, reflecting the desolate beauty of the snow-covered landscape. I set up my equipment near the old ticket booth, a relic of days long past, and began to document the stillness around me. Minutes turned into hours as I sat in the quiet, my only company the occasional rustle of leaves and the soft crunch of snow beneath my boots. It was then that I heard it, the faintest sound of footsteps echoing along the platform. Slow and deliberate, my breath caught in my throat as I scanned the empty tracks, the shadows playing tricks on my weary mind. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice trembling with a mixture of fear and curiosity. No response came, only the persistent echo of the footsteps growing louder, more insistent. Suddenly, the temperature dropped sharply, the air turning frigid as a ghostly figure materialized at the far end of the platform. She was dressed in a flowing white gown, her hair cascading over her shoulders in loose waves. Her face was pale, almost translucent, with eyes that held a deep sorrow and longing. "Can I help you?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, the reality of her presence sinking in. She didn't respond, her gaze fixed on something beyond my sight. Slowly, she began to walk towards me, her steps silent on the snowy ground. The station seemed to hold its breath as she approached, the only sound the soft whisper of the wind through the empty halls. As she reached me, the sorrow in her eyes intensified, and a sense of profound sadness washed over me. "Please," her voice echoed softly, "help us find peace." Before I could react, she extended her hand, a gesture of pleading and desperation. The air around us grew colder still, the shadows deepening as if the darkness itself was reaching out to consume her. I felt an overwhelming urge to reach out, to offer comfort to this lost soul. But fear held me back. "Who are you?" I demanded, desperation creeping into my voice. She paused, her expression one of anguish and regret. "We are trapped by our past," she whispered, her voice carrying the weight of countless untold stories. "Our lives were lost to the unforgiving winter, our spirits bound to the tracks we never left." As her words hung in the air, the sounds of distant trains began to fill the station, their whistles echoing like mournful cries through the night. The spectral figure seemed to draw strength from the haunting melodies, her form becoming more defined, her presence more tangible. I realized then that these were the souls of those who had perished in the tragic accidents that had marred the history of Truckee Station. A reminder of the fragility of life and the relentless passage of time. The spirits lingered, unable to move on, their unfinished business keeping them tethered to the mortal realm. "How can I help you?" I asked, my fear now tempered by compassion. She looked into my eyes, her sorrow mirrored in my own reflection. "Remember us," she said, her voice filled with a haunting plea. "Share our stories so that we may find peace." With that, the room seemed to lighten, the oppressive cold lifting as the first hints of dawn began to break through the darkness. The spectral woman faded into the morning light, her presence leaving behind a sense of calm and closure that had been absent for so long. In the days that followed, I dedicated myself to honoring the memories of those who had been lost at Truckee Station. I compiled their stories, sharing them with the community and ensuring that their sacrifices were never forgotten. The haunting whispers and ghostly apparitions ceased, replaced by a renewed sense of reverence and respect for the history that had shaped Truckee. But the memory of that night remains with me, a haunting reminder of the thin line between honoring the past and succumbing to fear. I often find myself gazing out at the snowy tracks of Truckee Station, the echoes of the lost souls whispering through my mind, a testament to the enduring bonds between the living and the dead. And so, I warn others, respect the places you visit, honor the memories of those who have been lost, and understand that some encounters transcend our understanding. For in the heart of the Sierra Nevada, amidst the silent snow and lingering spirits, lies a darkness that can consume even the bravest of souls, but also a light that can guide us toward compassion and eternal peace. Story number 5. Whispers Beneath the Surface. The Haunting of Mono Lake. I still wake up in the dead of night. The memory of that fateful winter evening at Mono Lake seared into my mind like the relentless frost that once cloaked its mysterious waters. My name is David Lawson, and the events that unfolded beneath the surface of this eerie saltwater lake have left an indelible mark on my soul. A constant reminder of the thin line between the ordinary and the supernatural. Mono Lake, nestled in the heart of California's Eastern Sierra, is a place of stark beauty and profound solitude. The saline waters, shimmering under the moonlight, hold secrets that have whispered through the ages. Known for its otherworldly tufa towers and haunting legends, the lake has long been a magnet for those seeking solace in nature's embrace, or perhaps something more sinister lurking beneath its serene facade. It was December 5th, 2019, when I decided to embark on a solo fishing trip to Mono Lake. Eager to escape the chaos of city life and reconnect with the tranquility of the wilderness. As an avid fisherman and amateur photographer, I found peace in the rhythmic dance of casting my line and capturing the ethereal beauty of the lake through my lens. Little did I know that this trip would plunge me into a nightmare I could never have imagined. The day began with clear skies and a biting cold that hinted at the approaching winter. I set up my gear on the northern shore, the sun casting long shadows across the frozen expanse. The lake was calm, its surface glassy under the pale winter sun, reflecting the rugged peaks of the Sierra Nevada like a flawless mirror. I cast my line into the depths, the lure sinking silently into the cold embrace of the water. Hours passed in peaceful solitude, the only sounds being the gentle lapping of waves against the shore and the distant call of a lone eagle soaring overhead. As dusk approached, the sky transformed into a canvas of fiery oranges and deep purples, the last rays of sunlight dancing on the icy waters. It was then that I noticed something unusual, a faint, ethereal glow emanating from beneath the surface, a soft luminescence that pulsed rhythmically like a heartbeat. Intrigued, I leaned closer, my breath visible in the frigid air. The glow intensified, revealing shapes beneath the water, faces, pale and sorrowful, drifting just below the surface. My heart raced as I strained to see more clearly, the spectral visages staring back at me with hollow eyes that seemed to plead for something I couldn't comprehend. "Is anyone there?" I called out, my voice trembling with a mix of fear and curiosity. The faces remained motionless, their silent cries echoing in the stillness of the evening. Determined to capture the phenomenon, I retrieved my camera, the cold metal biting into my gloves. As I took the first photograph, a sudden chill swept through the air, the temperature dropping precipitously despite the fading warmth of the day. The lake's surface rippled unnaturally, distorting the reflections and casting eerie shadows that danced across the shore. I felt an inexplicable pull, a compulsion to dive into the icy waters and uncover the source of the haunting glow. Ignoring the rational voice in my head warning me of the dangers, I plunged into the frigid depths, the water enveloping me in a numbing embrace. My lungs burned as I struggled to adjust to the cold, the darkness pressing in around me like a suffocating blanket. As I descended deeper, the faces became clearer, their expressions etched with anguish and longing. I reached out, my hand passing through their ethereal forms, only to be met with a bone-chilling sensation that made me recoil in terror. The water around me seemed to come alive, the shadows twisting and contorting into grotesque shapes that writhed with malevolent intent. Suddenly, a force gripped my legs, pulling me towards the bottom of the lake. I kicked and thrashed, fighting against the invisible hands that sought to drag me into the abyss. The faces around me began to chant in a hollow, sorrowful voice, their whispers weaving a haunting melody that echoed through the water. "Release us. Find peace." Panic surged through me as I realized I was not just witnessing ghosts, but being ensnared by their lingering torment. Desperate to escape, I summoned every ounce of strength, breaking free from their spectral grasp and ascending towards the surface. The water roared around me, the oppressive darkness giving way to the star-studded sky as I broke through. Gasping for air, shivering uncontrollably, I climbed out of the lake, the cold biting into my skin as I staggered towards my gear. The faces beneath the surface had vanished, the lake returning to its calm, silent state as if nothing had ever disturbed its depths. Heart pounding, I gathered my equipment, the haunting experience etched into my very being. The next morning, I reviewed the photos I had taken, expecting to see nothing more than reflections and ripples. To my horror, the images revealed the ghostly faces in all their spectral glory, their hollow eyes staring back at me with an unspoken plea. The chilling encounter left me shaken, the line between reality and the supernatural blurring into an unsettling ambiguity. Determined to understand what I had experienced, I delved into the history of Mono Lake, uncovering tales of tragedy and loss that had woven themselves into the fabric of the community. The lake had been a site of numerous accidents over the years, fishermen lost to sudden storms, divers disappearing without a trace, their fates forever tied to the mysterious waters. Locals spoke in hushed tones of restless spirits, their souls unable to find peace after untimely deaths, forever haunting the very place that had claimed their lives. One story stood out among the rest, a legend of a young woman named Eleanor Hart, a skilled diver who had tragically lost her life while exploring the depths of Mono Lake. Her spirit, it was said, could never leave the waters she had loved, her cries for help echoing through the cold night air. The faces I had seen beneath the surface were believed to be her and others like her, trapped in an eternal cycle of sorrow and longing. Armed with this knowledge, I felt a sense of responsibility to honor their memories and perhaps help them find the peace they had been denied. I organized a memorial dive, reaching out to experienced diverse and local historians to shed light on the haunting phenomena that plagued Mono Lake. Together, we sought to uncover the truth behind the legends, hoping to bridge the gap between the living and the dead. During the memorial dive, the atmosphere was thick with anticipation and reverence. As we descended into the icy depths, the familiar glow appeared once more, guiding us towards the heart of the lake. The faces awaited us, their sorrowful eyes meeting ours with an unspoken plea. This time, I approached with compassion rather than fear, reaching out to connect with their tormented spirits. "Please, let us help you," I whispered, my voice steady despite the cold. "Find peace and rest." The spirits responded with a collective sigh, their forms beginning to shimmer and fade as if the chains of their lingering torment were finally loosening. The lake's waters grew warmer, the oppressive cold giving way to a serene tranquility that filled the depths. The faces smiled softly, their anguish melting away as they drifted into the ether, their spirits finally free from the eternal cycle of sorrow. As we ascended to the surface, the lake was calm and still, the haunting glow replaced by the gentle light of dawn breaking over the horizon. The memory of that night lingered, a testament to the enduring power of compassion and the thin line that separates the living from the restless spirits that haunt forgotten places. In the days that followed, Mono Lake returned to its peaceful state, the legends now a story of redemption and remembrance rather than fear and despair. Visitors still spoke of the mysterious lights and ghostly faces, but the lake had found a new balance, its haunted past acknowledged and honored by those who dared to listen. but the memory of that winter night remains with me, a haunting yet comforting reminder of the thin line between honoring the past and succumbing to fear. I often find myself gazing out at the serene waters of Mono Lake, the whispers of the lost echoing through my mind, a testament to the spirits that linger in forgotten places and the souls that seek to find their way home. And so, I warn others, respect the places you explore, honor the memories of those who have been lost, and understand that some encounters transcend our understanding. For in the heart of Minnesota, amidst the silent snow and lingering spirits, lies a darkness that can consume even the bravest of souls, but also a light that can guide us toward compassion and eternal peace. Story number 6. Shadows of Bodhi, the Cursed Echoes. I still wake up in the dead of night. The memory of that fateful visit to Bodhi seared into my mind like the scorching summer sun that once blistered its deserted streets. My name is Michael Harris, and the events that unfolded during my trip to this abandoned gold rush town in the Sierra Nevada have left an indelible mark on my soul, a constant reminder of the thin line between curiosity and the supernatural. Bodhi, once a bustling mining town, now stands as a ghostly relic frozen in time. The wooden storefronts, decaying houses, and silent streets whisper tales of prosperity turned to despair. Legends of curses and restless spirits have long shrouded Bodhi in an eerie veil, deterring most from venturing too close after dark. But I was different, as a writer fascinated by the macabre. The stories surrounding Bodhi were too tantalizing to resist. It was late October, the air crisp with the onset of winter, when I decided to embark on this solitary journey. Equipped with my camera, notebook, and an insatiable curiosity, I drove through winding mountain roads, the scenery transforming from lush forests to barren, snow-dusted landscapes. The isolation of Bodhi only added to its allure, promising untouched stories waiting to be unearthed. Upon arrival, the town greeted me with an unsettling silence. The wind howled through broken windows and creaking doors, carrying with it the faintest whispers of bygone days. I set up camp near the remnants of the general store, the heart of Bodhi, its sign barely readable through layers of grime and neglect. As dusk settled, the temperature plummeted, the first snowflakes of the season beginning to fall, coating the town in a shimmering blanket of white. The first night was uneventful, save for the occasional sound of footsteps crunching on the snow-covered pavement. I documented my findings, capturing the haunting beauty of Bodhi through my lens. But as midnight approached, an inexplicable unease settled over me. The wind seemed to carry a different tone, a mournful melody that tugged at the edges of my consciousness. I decided to explore the town further, driven by an unshakable feeling that I was being watched. As I wandered through the deserted streets, the shadows seemed to dance with a life of their own, elongating and twisting in the flickering light of my flashlight. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the distant hoot of an owl and the soft whisper of the wind. Approaching the old saloon, its doors hanging off their hinges, I felt a sudden chill sweep over me. The stories had warned of Bodhi's cursed artifacts, items taken from the town bringing misfortune to their owners. The thought sent a shiver down my spine, but my curiosity pushed me forward. Inside, the remnants of a once vibrant establishment lay scattered: broken glass, overturned tables, and faded photographs adorning the walls. As I examined the old piano in the corner, a sudden gust of wind extinguished my flashlight, plunging me into darkness. Panic surged as I fumbled to relight it, the eerie silence now broken by a faint, sorrowful melody emanating from the instrument. The keys moved on their own, playing a haunting tune that echoed through the empty saloon. My heart raced as I realized I was not alone. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice trembling with fear. No response came, only the continuation of the ghostly music. I backed away slowly, my mind racing to rationalize the inexplicable phenomena. That's when I saw her, a figure standing by the window, her form barely visible in the dim light. She was dressed in a tattered gown, her hair disheveled, and her eyes hollow with sorrow. Before I could react, she vanished, the room returning to its oppressive silence. Trembling, I decided it was time to leave, the weight of Bodhi's haunting presence pressing down on me. As I made my way back to camp, the sound of distant laughter echoed through the streets, a chilling reminder that the spirits of Bodhi were very much alive. The next morning, I awoke to find my belongings slightly moved, the air still heavy with the remnants of the previous night's encounter. Determined to uncover the truth behind Bodhi's curses, I delved into the town's history, piecing together the tragic stories of those who had once called Bodhi home. The tales spoke of greed, despair, and the relentless pursuit of fortune that had led to the town's downfall, leaving behind only shadows and regrets. As the days passed, the haunting grew more intense. Shadows flitted across my path, laughter echoed in the stillness, and the temperature seemed to drop without warning. I began to understand that Bodhi was not merely a ghost town, but a living entity, feeding off the sorrow and pain of its past inhabitants. One evening, driven by a mix of fear and determination, I returned to the saloon, hoping to confront the restless spirits that had tormented me. The doors creaked open with a force that sent me stumbling inside. The room now cold and lifeless. The old piano stood silent once more, but the feeling of being watched was undeniable. I approached the center of the room, the shadows deepening around me. "I came to understand your pain," I whispered, my voice barely audible. Suddenly, the temperature plummeted, and the room filled with the sorrowful cries of the lost souls of Bodhi. Figures materialized from the darkness, their faces etched with anguish and longing. The spirits of those who had perished in the harsh winters and the unforgiving pursuit of gold now surrounded me, their presence both terrifying and pitiable. "Why do you haunt this place?" I demanded, my voice shaking. One of the spirits, a woman with tear-streaked cheeks, stepped forward. "We are trapped by our regrets, unable to find peace until our stories are remembered." Understanding dawned on me. I was not just an intruder, but a witness to their suffering. "What can I do to help you find peace?" I asked, my fear giving way to compassion. The spirits closed in, their whispers filling the room with a chorus of sorrow. "Remember our stories. Share our pain so that we may be free." With newfound resolve, I documented their stories, capturing their essence through my writing and photography. Each tale of loss and regret added to the collective sorrow that held Bodhi captive. Slowly, the intensity of the hauntings began to diminish, the spirits finding solace in the acknowledgement of their suffering. On my final night in Bodhi, the town seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. The oppressive cold lifted, replaced by a gentle warmth that filled the streets. The shadows no longer danced with malevolent intent, and the laughter had softened into whispers of gratitude. The piano remained silent, a symbol of the peace that had finally been restored. As I packed up to leave, the spirits of Bodhi stood before me, their faces now serene and free of anguish. "Thank you," they whispered, their voices a harmonious blend of relief and gratitude. Driving away from Bodhi, the snow continued to fall gently, the town now a place of memory and respect rather than fear. The experience had changed me, deepening my understanding of the supernatural and the enduring power of compassion. Years have passed since that winter visit, but the memory of Bodhi remains vivid in my mind. The legends of cursed artifacts and restless spirits have taken on new meaning, serving as a reminder of the importance of honoring the past and the lives lost to it. Bodhi, once a town of tragedy and despair, now stands as a testament to the enduring bonds between the living and the dead, a place where stories of sorrow can transform into tales of redemption. But the memory of those haunted nights still lingers, a haunting yet comforting presence that reminds me of the thin line between honoring the past and succumbing to fear. I often find myself gazing out at the snow-covered landscapes, the whispers of Bodhi echoing through my mind, a testament to the spirits that linger in forgotten places and the souls that seek to find their way home. And so, I warn others, respect the places you visit. honor the memories of those who have passed, and understand that some encounters transcend our understanding. For in the heart of Minnesota, amidst the silent snow and lingering spirits, lies a darkness that can consume even the bravest of souls, but also a light that can guide us toward compassion and eternal peace. Story number 7. Echoes of Desperation, the haunting cries of Donner Pass. I still wake up in the dead of night. The memory of that fateful winter evening in Donner Pass seared into my mind like the relentless frost that once gripped the desolate landscape. My name is Alex Turner, and the events that unfolded during my solitary trek through the pass have left an indelible mark on my soul. A constant reminder of the thin veil between the living and the restless spirits that linger in forgotten places. Donner Pass, a name that echoes with tragedy and resilience, lies nestled in the rugged heart of the Sierra Nevada. Known for its treacherous weather and haunting history, the pass has long been a magnet for adventurers and history enthusiasts alike. But for me, it became the setting of a nightmarish encounter that blurred the lines between reality and the supernatural. It was late December 2015. When I decided to embark on a solo journey to reconnect with nature and escape the cacophony of modern life. As an amateur historian, the story of the Donner Party, a group of pioneers who became stranded in the pass during the winter of 1846, had always fascinated me. Their desperate struggle for survival, the heartbreaking loss of life, and the enduring legacy of their ordeal made Donner Pass a place of both reverence and dread. The day I set out, the sky was a steely gray, heavy with the promise of an unforgiving winter storm. I packed my gear meticulously, ensuring I had enough supplies to last me through the treacherous conditions. The drive to Donner Pass was arduous, the roads slick with ice and barely visible under the heavy snowfall. By the time I reached the trailhead, night had fallen, and the first flakes of snow began to fall, coating the world in a silken layer of white. I pitched my tent near a small clearing, the dense forest surrounding me like a silent sentinel. The temperature plummeted quickly, the wind howling through the trees with a ferocity that sent shivers down my spine. As I settled into my sleeping bag, the sounds of the forest grew louder, cracking branches, distant animal calls, and the relentless whisper of the wind. Around midnight, the temperature dropped to well below freezing, and I found myself unable to sleep, restless and uneasy. The stories of Donner Pass's haunted past seemed to come alive in the oppressive cold. I pulled out my journal, attempting to distract myself by jotting down observations and reflections. But the silence of the night was soon broken by a faint, sorrowful cry echoing through the trees. At first, I dismissed it as the cry of a lone animal, a creature struggling against the harsh elements. But as the minutes passed, the sound grew more distinct, more human, a desperate plea for help that sent chills down my spine. My heart raced as I strained to listen, the cry intertwining with the howling wind, creating an eerie symphony of despair. Help! Help me! The voice was faint, almost lost in the tempest, but unmistakably human. I felt a compulsion to investigate, a pull towards the source of the anguish. Grabbing my headlamp, I stepped out of my tent, the cold biting at my exposed skin. The snow crunched under my boots as I navigated the winding trail. Following the direction of the cries, the forest seemed to close in around me, the towering pines casting long, menacing shadows that danced in the flickering beam of my light. As I ventured deeper into the woods, the cries became louder, more desperate. The wind seemed to guide me, the sounds leading me towards an area where the trees grew denser, their branches heavy with snow. My breath quickened, the sense of being watched intensifying with every step. The stories of the Donner Party's tragic fate swirled in my mind, each thought heightening my fear and curiosity. Finally, I reached a clearing illuminated by the pale light of the moon, the snow glistening like a blanket of diamonds. In the center stood an old, weathered cabin, the remnants of a bygone era, its windows darkened by grime and neglect. The cries were now unmistakably coming from within, a heart-wrenching plea that seemed to pierce through the stillness of the night. "Hello," I called out, my voice trembling with a mix of fear and determination. "Is someone there?" Silence answered me, the only sound the relentless wind and the soft crackling of snow underfoot. I approached the cabin cautiously, my heart pounding in my chest. The door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit interior filled with shadows and the lingering scent of damp wood. The cries had ceased, replaced by an oppressive silence that pressed in on me from all sides. Stepping inside, I felt an overwhelming sense of sorrow and loss. The room was sparse, with only a few pieces of old furniture covered in dust and cobwebs. In the corner, a dusty piano stood silently, its keys yellowed with age. My eyes were drawn to a faded photograph hanging on the wall, a family portrait, the faces blurred and indistinct, yet exuding a palpable sense of longing and despair. Suddenly, a chill swept through the room, and the temperature plummeted further. I felt a presence behind me, an invisible force pressing down on my shoulders, making it difficult to breathe. My instincts screamed at me to flee, but something held me in place, compelling me to confront whatever lay in the shadows. "I know you're here," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "I want to help you." A faint movement caught my eye, a shadowy figure standing near the piano, its form barely discernible against the darkness. My breath caught in my throat as I realized it was a man, tall and gaunt, his eyes hollow and filled with sorrow. He didn't speak, his gaze fixed on something far beyond my sight. "Please," I begged, feeling the weight of his unspoken plea. "Tell me what you need." The man remained silent, but his posture spoke volumes. Desperation and longing etched into every line of his ghostly form. I took a tentative step forward, reaching out a hand in a gesture of compassion. "I'm here to help," I reiterated, my voice steadier despite the fear gripping me. As I approached, the temperature rose slightly, the oppressive cold lifting as if my presence was offering a glimmer of hope. The man began to move towards the piano, his steps slow and deliberate. I followed, the air around us thick with unspoken emotions and the lingering echoes of past tragedies. Reaching the piano, I noticed a sheet of music lying on the stand, its notes scrawled hastily in what looked like desperate handwriting. The melody was hauntingly beautiful, a sorrowful tune that seemed to resonate with the very essence of the man's anguish. I sat down at the piano, my fingers trembling as I began to play the notes, hoping to bridge the gap between our worlds. As the music filled the room, the man's figure began to shimmer, his form becoming more defined as he watched me with an intensity that was both unsettling and heartbreaking. The room seemed to come alive with the echoes of the past, the cries of the lost pioneers intertwining with the melody, creating a symphony of sorrow that enveloped us both. "I can feel your pain," I whispered, my fingers dancing across the keys with growing confidence. "Let me help you find peace." The man's expression softened, the sorrow in his eyes giving way to a faint glimmer of gratitude. He reached out, his hand passing through mine like mist, and for a moment, the boundaries between our worlds seemed to blur. The music swelled, the notes carrying our shared anguish into the cold night air. As the final chord resonated through the cabin, the man's figure began to dissolve, his presence fading into the ether like the last traces of a fading storm. The oppressive silence lifted, replaced by a serene stillness that filled the room with a sense of closure and peace. I sat there for a moment, the weight of the encounter sinking in, before standing up and making my way back to the entrance. The snow had stopped falling, the storm now a distant memory as dawn began to break over Donner Pass. The cabin stood silent once more, the echoes of the past lingering in the crisp morning air. Driving away, the first light of day casting a warm glow over the snowy landscape, I felt a profound sense of accomplishment and relief. I had helped the restless spirit find peace, bridging the gap between the living and the dead through empathy and understanding. The legends of Donner Pass had always been shrouded in mystery and fear, but my experience transformed them into a story of redemption and remembrance. In the years that followed, The haunted cries of Donner Pass became a tale of hope and closure rather than one of despair. Visitors still shared stories of eerie sounds and fleeting shadows, but the legend now carried a message of compassion and the enduring power of human connection. The spirits of the Donner Party, once trapped in their eternal winter struggle, had found solace in the understanding and respect of those who dared to listen. But the memory of that winter night remains with me, a haunting yet comforting reminder of the thin line between honoring the past and succumbing to fear. I often find myself gazing out at the snow-covered trails of Donner Pass, the whispers of the lost echoing through my mind, a testament to the spirits that linger in forgotten places and the souls that seek to find their way home. And so, I warn others, respect the histories that shape our landscapes, honor the memories of those who have been lost, and understand that some mysteries transcend our understanding. For in the heart of Minnesota, amidst the silent snow and lingering spirits, lies a darkness that can consume even the bravest of souls, but also a light that can guide us toward empathy and eternal peace.